Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti with Cannabis Equipment News, and with me today is David Wolf and Tim Vreeling, founders of Greenbox Builders. Thank you very much for joining me today, guys.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
So, Tim, could you start by telling me a little bit about Greenbox and what it is you guys do?
Greenbox Builders is a building manufacturer of pre-engineered, pre-designed, and pre-specified facilities for the cannabis industry: analytical labs, extraction labs, cultivation, edibles kitchens, and technical facilities like this. All GMP facilities, and they're all pre-packaged and specified so that we take months and in some cases years off the timeline for people to get facilities up and running and get operational.
David, why did you want to build a better cannabis facility?
So we have a background in traditional building, in actually scientific laboratory design and build. And we had cannabis projects that just take a really long time to get through the permitting process and get through the cities. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to develop something that would help our customers get to occupancy a lot quicker. So what we've developed is a building that we can reproduce that's been pre-engineered and that we can build a lot faster and get to occupancy a lot faster.
Tim, what are some of the benefits? You know, I assume that when you're talking about saving months and years, I know that in the cannabis industry in particular, that's where a lot of that lost time, and sometimes companies fail to get off the ground because they're waiting on construction. Yeah,
it can be brutal. In fact, we've seen cases where the downtime, the waiting time costs more than the facility. Mm-hmm. The lost opportunity, the lost business in moving their businesses forward it can be devastating.
I guess taking a step back, could you guys each tell me, Tim, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about your background. You know, is your specialty in architectural design, and how did you find yourself coming to cannabis?
So I go back about 30 years in technical facilities, design and building. So I've been a licensed contractor since the late 80s, 88, 89, and spent a lot of time in the science space, so building medical device labs, pharmaceuticals, whether it's kitchens for test kitchens and anything really that has to do with science facilities and technical facilities. And then as the cannabis industry kind of grew, we started seeing more and more people asking about them. And then what I discovered was in the design build process, the municipalities were making it a lot more difficult to get plans approved for a conditional use permit and then get building permits than you see normally in the building process. The requirements are a lot higher, and for a number of different reasons. And so came across this idea. It's like, you know what we need to do? We package it so that we can, when somebody says we find a piece of property, we help them find a piece of property that's appropriate. We have a full set of plans that are already engineered. All the drawings are done. All the code issues are dealt with in the documents, and we can take them to a city inside of 45 days of engaging with us, rather than just starting the design process and moving that design process forward with the municipality.
So you mentioned pharma, food, and a couple of other industries. In terms of difficulty, how does cannabis stack up? Cannabis building stack up?
they're essentially the same facilities. The issues about cross-contamination, adulteration, having control over the inside of the building so that we don't have contamination issues, either within the building between different segments or processes, or from outside the building to inside the building. Odor controls, none of these are new issues. They've been around and dealt with by technical facilities builders for a very long time.
How did you guys get into labs? I figure it's kind of like this job, right? Like when I started in school as a writer, I never found myself doing a cannabis podcast. How did you find yourself, working into lab architecture?
For me, it was, I love the technical aspects of it, and it's more difficult than say a typical TI job. There's a lot more that goes into it from the very beginnings of construction to the very end to make sure that it's done correctly. So I love the technical aspects of it. And generally you're working with really smart people, which is always fun. And the people in the industry at the top of their game that are building technical facilities. So I was always just attracted to that. So, and then I've done universities and big pharma and small medical device and you name it. Every product you see goes through a laboratory nowadays.
When I hear about how quickly it happens, I feel like there's just this natural question of, in terms of structural integrity and the quality of the building. Could you talk a little bit about that and, sort of how they stack up against other buildings that go through that more traditional process?
So the Uniform Building Code is the Uniform Building Code, and it's that across the United States. Mm-hmm. So the structures aren't built cheaply, they're built correctly, and they're built to code. And the one thing that we can't do is that every municipality has its own rules and regs, and every different location, different zones in the United States may have different wind load, snow load, seismic load, soils. So we have the buildings 85% done, and then that last piece of it we do locally so that we get soils, and we get a structural engineer that does the foundation, and we tweak the design for whatever the municipality says. Oh, we want a brick veneer on the outside, or we want wood slats, or you have to have this much green areas around your parking lot, and the code doesn't say it has to be sprinklered, but we want it sprinklered, whatever it is. So we make those adjustments to the locality, and that's what finalizes it. But the difference is that's a small piece of it. Mm-hmm. So we can do that piece of it quickly because we have the bigger pieces already done, and it's completely to code.
Can you talk a little bit about the initial interest that you've had since you incorporated in June? I have to imagine that when you approach somebody looking to build a facility and tell them that you already have it 85% done, that's quite a sales pitch.
Response so far has been pretty incredible. People are excited about the idea of getting a facility that is GMP and built to really high scientific standards, and avoiding really traditional construction pitfalls, and getting to market quicker. So there's been.
Tim, I've seen previous efforts where it seemed like companies would offer more of a modular solution, almost a shipping container for some of these extraction processes, even like mobile labs. Can you talk a little bit about how what you're offering differs from some of those other solutions on the market?
So I looked at the mobile lab thing, but learning about licensing issues in the state of California and across the country, most of those mobile facilities aren't legal. And then when you dig into the building code and the different requirements for the building code, even when it comes to like ADA issues and other requirements that we have to meet as builders, they just don't stack up. So I know there's a market for them and people are buying them. There are places where they're legit and are functioning well for them. But my background in the building, I believe that we could build a complete facility and control. And the biggest thing from science is you want to control that facility from the slab up. You want the vapor barriers, the moisture barriers, pest control, all those issues we deal with as we build the building. We don't, for instance, we don't allow colored drinks inside a building when it's being built.
Why is
Just
that?
water. You can't have anything but water, no coffee, no sodas. And that's because those drinks get spilled on the concrete and then that becomes a pest magnet for the next 20 years. Right. So, I mean, that's just a simple little thing, but the cleaning and the detail that goes into building a facility from the ground up versus retrofitting a facility is considerably different.
Man, I don't know if I show up to work and all of a sudden you're like, no coffee in here. We might have a real problem.
They can have it out in the parking lot.
Very good. What are the ADA issues that you were talking about?
So if you take a container and you just put it on a slab inside a warehouse, you have to build a ramp for it. And you have to have, and then also those containers are so narrow that getting through them, you don't have the right aisleways and things like that. It's not always an issue. I don't want to overplay it, but those are some of the things that come up. Ventilation is very difficult to do correctly in a tiny little space like that. You need some cubic foot of volume around you. It makes it easier to control the air, easier to manipulate the air the way we want it to be manipulated. So that's another issue. And then there's moisture issue, there's condensation issues from heating and cooling, and there's a number of other,
Okay. I want to go back to the time savings. You talk about months or years. If someone comes to you today, like with the new people that you have bids out for, how much time are you saying that you're going to save by skipping design, engineering, and specifications?
So it's going to vary by municipality, right? But I have experience where it's taken 13 months to get through a city, right? Wow. Because of what a normal submittal package in drawings is not a complete set of drawings, because you're asking the municipality, can we do this business in this location? But they're wanting nearly complete sets of drawings. So you're having to engage an architect and pay for a complete set of drawings before you can even find out whether they're going to let you have that business in that spot, which is crazy. So it's at least 9 months. I think 9 months is on the short side in cannabis. It could be 9 months plus many other months, depending on the municipality. Whereas, like I said, they engage us, we have the drawings done, and then we do those tweakings for civil and municipal issues, like whatever kind of roof screen they want or what they want the outside of the building to look like. And then we're putting a whole set of drawings in front of the planning commission for their approval. It's very professional. All the code issues are there. All the cannabis related licensing issues are there. Security's obviously a big one in the cannabis space. So there's design issues around security that's all integrated into the plans. And those things are all incorporated in the submittal, and it's ready to go.
What is the standard footprint that you start with?
The one we have right now for an analytical lab, we have two. One is a 3,360 square feet, and we have a 4,500 square foot.
Okay. Where are the structures manufactured?
You want to take it, David?
Sure. We're building on site. So we are helping our clients select the site that's going to be appropriate. We're doing the entitlements, we're doing the civil engineering and the grading, and then we are ready to build. And, we're doing that. We'd mentioned some pretty innovative building techniques. One of the things we're doing is the structure of the building is a insulated concrete form. So we're actually, and these things are really neat. They're like Lego blocks. So we're building the whole structural envelope of the building with these Lego blocks that have multiple steps in the building process integrated into one step. So fewer trades on site, and this is one of the time-saving techniques that we're using. So in the end, what we have is a structural concrete facility. And so you had asked about the difference between the quality of our building versus traditional build. We're in effect a traditional build, but we're building to very exact scientific standards. And our buildings are just thought out so that we can get through permitting a lot quicker and get from grading to occupancy quicker because we're thinking about that.
Tim, are there any common misconceptions about these structures, about particularly, using insulated concrete? Is there a bit of a learning curve for people once they come to you looking for a new building?
Yes. The ICF is not really common. It's only about 4% of construction in the United States. Mm-hmm. And it's been around since the 60s, but it hasn't gained real traction because they developing the product, mastering the construction technique with it. But you're essentially ending up with a reinforced concrete building, which is fantastic. And then the insulated value is higher than a typical structure. We're at like R32 rather than R24 or R16. So we have a fully vapor tight facility. We have a fully watertight facility, which is really important for science to control that. We own that inside space and we want to, so that if it's an analytical lab or production lab or extraction lab, nothing from the outside is contaminating their products. They have control over that space inside. That's very important. So, but there's always an education piece to construction because there's a lot of innovative techniques and building styles change and they have been evolving. So I think there's always that piece, but people get excited when they see it. It's really interesting.
David, you offer the prospect of more predictable timelines. With that 15% kind of out and open and sort of unknown, do you think that is there any fear that clients, that 15% variable will cause frustration, or do you think that because you kind of already have 85% of it like ready to roll, that'll give them enough peace of mind?
So the 15% is the local conditions of the site and the engineering process. So in certain sites, there's going to be seismic issues. Other sites, need to be built for hurricanes. So those local building issues are not risk issues. It's just a normal, localized, construction process. We go through the due diligence of selecting the site so that we know that the site is appropriate, with respect to the availability of utilities and zoning availability and any title encumbrances. The 15% that's localized is not a risk factor. It's just a we need to complete the engineering of the building and the slab for local site conditions.
Tim, do you see yourself as more of a good fit for the smaller cannabis cultivator or the larger multi-state operators?
I think we're going to fit in with both. Most of the people we're talking to are people who want to build chains, right? They want to build multiple facilities over a number of years. They want to be able to, we haven't really talked about that, but the modularity of our facility allows us to expand it design-wise. So if somebody wants to put an extraction lab in and that's it, we can, and they only want to do the one, that's great. That's a great business and we can help them with that. Or if it's an analytical lab, the people were discussing, the entrepreneurs were discussing analytical labs with, most of them want to build chains, which is important and good because these are high quality operators that know that space. And so they're going to build a facility, get their operations dialed in, and then clone it and clone it and clone it. And that's the other thing we bring to the table, is that their facilities will be identical. Every single one of them will be built exactly the same way, the same furnishings, the same materials, the finishes on the walls, everything is the same. So all their SOPs become very standardized. They can use existing facilities for training. That becomes very important. So they develop all their processes and their standard operating procedures, and then they can clone that business, and that becomes really valuable.
David, have you guys run into any surprises yet that you really didn't foresee kind of jumping into cannabis?
One surprise recently is that we are getting inquiries to build overseas. So, our marketing footprint is, the states in the U.S. that are legal for cannabis or hemp. Our facilities are also very appropriate for hemp analytics and hemp extraction. So that's also, we are talking to some hemp growers in Florida who have an interest in building in Jamaica. There's some interest in projects in Canada. So that's been a little bit of a surprise. And, we're thinking about, we very much want to focus on what's near us first. But, we're engaging in Jamaica right now to understand the feasibility of that.
A lot of this industry was built into retrofit buildings. Fundamentally, as being from the pharmaceutical and food industries, does that kind of is that sort of maddening that, because when some of these companies were building into these old facilities, they didn't think about pest management or contamination that was in the walls or in the floor. They had to just be, seem like day one stuff for you.
Yeah, it's, and I understand it. It's like when you've spent your career building technical facilities, you think about those things from the very beginning. What was in the dirt that the slab is sitting on top of, but because wood structures that have had a leak in the roof, you're going to have mold. You're going to have spores in that building. You're going to have pest infestations that are inside the walls. In normal construction, they'll leave the debris inside the walls, at the bottom of the walls, right? And they just drywall over them, right? It just doesn't matter. Well, we clean it. We clean all that out. So if there ever is a moisture infiltration into that wall, it's not going to mildew inside the wall. I've seen pharmaceutical facilities that are doing multi-millions of dollars in production a week shut down because of molds that was growing inside stainless steel doors, because they bought the cheaper doors and they had like a cardboard interior instead of all metal. Somehow, some way, some moisture got inside one of those doors and they shut down tens of millions of dollars in production.
Man, it's just, I mean, I think that's what I find so interesting and impressive is you kind of never really know until it happens. But sometimes, you know, when you're trying to take the cheap way out, you're setting yourself up for it.
Yeah, you're for losing a lot of money. Yeah.
What is it like? So after you're done with the build, at the end of construction, do you have any other relationship with the facility? Do you stay in contact? What does that look like?
So we have in the planning stages, we're not there yet, but we're looking for a long-term relationship. So there's always standard builder warranties and manufacturer's warranties on the different products and things that are critically important to these facilities, like HVAC and exhaust equipment, and to all the ventilation equipment, electrical equipment. There's a high level of electrical action going on. So we're in the design stage of a long-term like facilities review and maintenance program offering. And we're like I said, we're just trying to design it, but that's our thought process, is that we want to have a long-term relationship and we want to make sure that like a biannual or an annual inspection by our persons that are looking for where pest infiltration or water or vapor, or where there's some small thing that somebody might not see, we're catching, and then and just making sure that facility stays as a high level of scientific facility as it can for, I mean, we're talking about buildings that'll have a 30, 50-year lifespan.
Wow. Okay. Tim, is there any concern over, making each of these structures to specifications to the local municipality? Is there any concern that if and when federal legalization goes through, some of the rules might change?
So we're used to building to FDA standards, GMP standards, and that's what the standard is going to be when it is federalized. So no, the answer is no. Okay. We will be able to. And if I could speak to that last question as well, is that we are looking to partner with equipment companies in a equipment offerings package that we can put in front of our clients, and that we can build into the facilities as part of our longer term offering as well.
Okay. So almost like more of an a la carte feature, where if you partner with these equipment manufacturers, when somebody's designing a building, they can, sort of specify exactly what they need from an equipment standpoint as well.
Yeah. So we're not operators. Our specialty is building the correct facilities for operators to get the most out of their business. Right. And there's like in extraction, how many different methodologies are there and how many arguments are there for each one? Right. So we can put a C1D1 or a C1D2 room in the facility, and they can do it with butane, methane, and whatever methods they want to use, and we can accommodate them for them. So we don't limit the space to a particular type of gear set. And then we have the infrastructure support for nitrogen, and in analytics, you have helium and methane and nitrogen and other gases. All that's built into the infrastructure and shows it for, but yeah, I mean, there's some really high quality equipment folks out there, and the ones that are going to be providing the level of service and commitment to their clients that we envision and that we do for our clients, we want to partner with.
Very good. Well, before we get out of here, David, I'll start with you. Is there anything else that we might have left out, or anything in particular that you want to make sure that the CEN listeners and viewers know about Greenbox?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having us on. Really, appreciate talking to your listeners, and looking forward to meeting as many people as possible at the show in Vegas. So again, we invite people to come see us at our booth at the MJ BizCon, and we can, you can see more about us on our website at greenbox.build. Thank you.
Very good. Tim, how about yourself? We miss anything?
No, I don't think so. It's a great conversation. I appreciate you. We look forward to seeing everyone at MJ BizCon, and I enjoy your podcast. Watched a few of your episodes. I'll pick up some more, and we appreciate your time.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out with that positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email me, you can always reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. All right, for David and Tim, once again, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.